Hi everyone, good afternoon or good morning or good evening, whenever you're watching this video. Just want to make sure you watch this before Tuesday, November 10. Okay? We're jumping into a new unit and a new chapter. This unit is all about quantitative data, two quantitative variables that we're comparing and we're analyzing. Okay? All right. So here's some important dates that we need to talk about before we jump in. Make sure by Tuesday you sign up for your AP exams. If you want more advice on that, please let me know. But most AP questions, AP test questions, please direct them to Miss Rizzo or Miss Seo. Miss Seo knows a lot as well. Wednesday is Veterans Day, so please celebrate your veterans. Class, when something is so important that we have a holiday, right, that we have the day off, please remember the reason why we have the day off and not just the fact that we have a day off. Your assignment, this is going to be assigned on Tuesday. It's 5 problems. I know it seems like a lot, but the first 3, I believe, are quick multiple choice, like matching questions. This would have been due on Wednesday at 3:10, but we don't have school. So if you can finish it by Thursday morning, that would be wonderful. Don't wait till Thursday morning to do it. Try to get it done Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay? We have Chapter 7 quiz on Thursday at the end of class, and we also have a guest speaker coming in. For Period 1 will be on Tuesday, Period 2 will be on Thursday. Okay, so let's jump in. We're on page 142, talking about scatter plots. Okay, so what is a scatter plot? The definition, or the definition at the bottom of 142 and then on to 143. This describes or depicts the association between two quantitative variables. Okay, so some key things to remember: two, and then also quantitative. Hopefully you all remember quantitative. It's a variable that counts or measures. Height, weight, number of pimples on your face, things like that. Okay, so not eye color, hair color. We're looking for the association or relationship between two variables. So for example, we can say something like number of hours studied for a test. Okay, is that quantitative? It sure is, right? It measures how many hours you studied, and then also your score on the exam. Okay, are these two clearly quantitative? And we have 2, right? So we call this variable, since this is on our x-axis, we call this the explanatory or predictor variable. Okay. We call this variable on the y-axis the response variable. Okay. This variable explains that one. So we're trying to glean some information about this based off of that. Okay. So this variable responds to whatever this is. Class, how would you describe that association? I know this is not always true, right? You're going to roll your eyes and say, oh my gosh, I studied 15 hours for that test and I still got a whatever. But generally speaking, of course, there are some outliers, right? It might look something like this. I know some of you right now, you're going to put in the comments, that's not true for my my AP Chem test, or that's not true for my APES test. But generally speaking, let's just say this. This is explained on page 146 for choose 5 types of variables, okay? All right. So when we describe a scatter plot, you're going to see questions that say something like, describe the association, or it might say something like, describe or analyze the scatter plot. When you see this, it's kind of like describe the distribution. Do you remember that from last unit? where we use cuss, right? C-U-S-S. You just took a test on that last week. But this time we're going to use FUDs. Right? And they explain FUDs on page 143 on the bottom. Actually goes to page 144 as well. Right? No specific order that you need to talk about this. Form, unusual features, just like last unit, direction, and then strength. Okay. Just like with cuss, you have to write these words out. Don't assume that the AP grader knows what FUDs is. They might laugh at you, actually. And the cuss, you might offend them if you say cuss. So for form, we're looking at, is it linear, curved, or none? None or other. Okay. We are focusing on linear. Okay. Unusual features, what we're looking for are outliers. But just like last time, you know, we could have gaps. We also have clusters. Okay. Direction is going to be positive, negative, or neither or none. Okay, so positive, you guys remember this from algebra class, is when you have data that has a positive direction. It's increasing as x increases, y increases. Negative is the opposite. As x increases, y decreases. Okay, looks something like that. And then none would just be kind of scattered. It would be like, just be like that. Oops. Okay, and the strength is talking about the correlation. And I'll get to that in a second. But we use the words strong, moderate, or weak. Okay, so let's just practice that for a moment. On page 142, there is a scatter plot. This example deals with the number of years that have passed since 1900 as your explanatory variable. By the way, I will mainly use explanatory variable, but don't be surprised if you see predictor, okay? So explanatory and then response. A good way to remember explanatory, this might be kind of lame, is when you think of the X, right, in explanatory, that tells you that's your X. Okay. So how would you describe this? What's the form of this? You would say it's linear, right? You know it's going this way. It's not exactly linear, but it's good enough for a line. Any unusual features here? You might say that this point right here looks like it deviates from the rest of the group. You might say that there's a gap right here. Okay, maybe even here. Okay. This is pretty good. Again, when you have a gap or an outlier, it'll be very, very obvious. Okay. We have to go to D, direction. You guys know this is positive, right? As X increases, Y increases. And the strength, what would you say about the strength of this association? I'd say it's pretty strong, right? It's very clear that, I mean, if you put your pen or pencil right here, I mean, you almost can't see the dots. It's pretty strong. So we're going to use words like moderately strong, very strong, moderately weak, moderately, you know, you can kind of like kind of, yeah. I guess you use kind of as well. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at an example. Let's go to page 160, and I want to do number 1 with you. So go ahead and pause the video and get there right now. You might actually beat me there. Okay. So I'm going to do a few examples with you. I want to look at D first. We're going to go out of order, okay? So we're looking at, I'm going to draw this. Okay. For this question, it's asking you to identify which one's explanatory and which one's the response. So which causes which, okay? And also identify the direction, form, and the strength. So for D, it's gasoline number of miles you've driven since filling up and the gallons remaining in your tank. So class, which affects which? Does the number of miles you've driven affect the amount of gas you have, or does the amount of gas you have affect the miles you've driven? Right? It would be your x, or your explanatory. I'm just going to write x. Is that okay? So your x would be the number of miles driven, and your y right here would be the number of gallons remaining in your tank. Okay? Class, what do you think about this? The more miles you drive, what happens to the gallons remaining? It would definitely decrease, right? So it might look something, like this. Okay? So the form of this, you would say, is linear. The direction is negative, and the strength, I would say, is pretty strong. Okay. How about, let's try B, and then after that let's do C. Okay. So B, we're talking about the circumference of an apple and the weight. Okay? So the larger, the more round, or the rounder, the larger the circumference, the more it's going to weigh, right? So this could be the circumference and the weight of the apple. Okay, you could make an argument that they're switched as well. So the explanatory would be the circumference, and then your response would be the weight. So how would you predict this? Okay. You could have some oddly shaped apples, right? But in general, it's definitely going to be positive, right? So the form, you would call this linear. Okay. Direction, okay, is positive this time. And then the strength, okay. So this is kind of a gray area, right? You could say it'd be moderately strong or strong. Okay? I think I'm going to put moderately strong. Okay. Why don't you try C right now? Why don't you pause the video and try C right now? C is shoe size and GPA. Okay. Which one affects which? Does your shoe size affect your GPA? Or does your GPA affect your shoe size? We'd say this is your shoe size and your GPA. Okay. What would you say that association would be? I think it'd be all over the place, right? Right? I know all you people out there with big feet are probably thinking, yeah, positive association. And all you people with little feet are thinking, yeah, negative association. So the form here would be none, not linear, not curved.